I'm sure you've heard of agents. I think it's the hot buzz right now. I think as in many times with AI, the hype is greater than the reality, but the reality is also not at its potential of where it can be.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm the CMO at Tulip.
Hey, I'm Mason. I'm the Chief Product Officer here.
Hi, I'm Olga. I'm the product lead for apps and automations.
So when we set out to make the AI composer, we weren't just chasing this generative AI hype that it feels like everyone is talking about right now. We really wanted to root whatever we made in our core product principles and make sure that it was valuable for users. So that's, operations first, human-centric, and capabilities that offered like a low entry for customers with high ceilings. And maybe that's a good place for us to start. How do those Tulip product principles kind of shape the way that we approach how we prioritize and think about designing the platform?
Mm-hmm. We've been working with generative AI models for a while, for a couple of years, and since the dark early days of GPT 3.5, and we had a sense of what they were capable of, and we wanted to rethink, okay, what can we do with it now? And we started, as we often do with our work, with operations first. Let's go to Gemba, go to the shop floor, talk to our users, understand what they're doing and how we can better help them and work with them, and see, okay, where are the things that are challenging them specifically in their environment, in operations, and what can we do with that? And that's sort of what led us to okay, PDF is still the lingua franca of all of this. It's still the common thing. It's still what's dominant in this field. How can we start to incorporate that and build that into our app creation process?
So we took an operations first approach by kind of going and seeing like what modes of creation people were using. Maybe backing out a little bit, can you two help outline what the core product principles are and why they're important to how we're approaching the product more generally?
So the first product principle is operations first. We recognize that your operations are unique. Every customer, every manufacturer has something different that they are building, and the challenges they have are also very different, all the way from manufacturing tractors to manufacturing high precision drugs and pharma. And they're also very dynamic. They change with the industry, they change with time. As things happen in the world, for example, with the pandemic, manufacturers have had to adapt. So one of our product principles is operations first.
I think that also really meshes with what we think of as open ecosystem. In a similar way that we recognize that challenges change over time, they're unique between customers. We also believe that no one company therefore can solve all of those challenges. And as a core principle, we need to think about being open. We need to think about connecting systems, working with tools that are already there, the next system that the company is going to acquire and wants to work together as a first principle in order to be able to better help bring all of this together and navigate it as a whole system.
And that brings it to the people, the humans at the center of manufacturing. Really, we are about the people in the room on the shop floor at the Gemba walks, running the shop floor in the back room, and the operators. We really want to make life better for everyone involved so that they can take those creative resources and innovate manufacturing. We're about innovating manufacturing, and for that, we really want to empower every individual person that's shaping the industry.
I want to call it the word innovating too, because I think it's actually a really interesting one here when we also think about, you mentioned earlier, low floor, high ceiling. And what we mean by that is very human, right? When somebody comes into Tulip for the first time, we want it to be a low floor, easy for them to get started, start working, find something to begin and get going, but then scale with them and their expertise in the tool. So high ceiling. So easy to get started and do things, but as your use cases get more complex and you get more and more advanced, the tool scales with you and supports you along that journey.
And I think that's one of the things both of you are pushing at this human-centric perspective is when we think about people, we think about the people who are the customers of our user, like the operators. We're thinking about our user who's often a process engineer. And at scale, our users start to look like plant managers and VP of ops, folks that need that information for the business. So there's a lot of different people and needs in mind, and designing for each of them is a complex challenge and also prioritization challenge. So before we kind of get to that piece of it, AI itself, there's a lot of caution, I'd say, maybe risk aversion, fair risk aversion. So outside of Tulip's core product principles, what were some of the maybe guardrails or structural perspectives you all are applying when thinking about how to approach generative AI capabilities in the platform?
Yeah, it's a good one. Let me actually start by just tying it directly back to the product principles, which is human-centric. Keep the human in the loop. By and large, these models aren't ready for fully unsupervised work. They're going to go off the rails, do something crazy, do something you don't expect. And so we want to make sure as we design these products, we're designing that into our actual interface, keeping the human in the loop in control along the way so that they're still using their brain, their creativity, their intelligence to filter, work with the output, navigate it, things like that.
So the human in the loop is one kind of built-in protection.
Yeah, from that's sort of what we think about from the product side. From the security and technical side, there's a couple things we're navigating here as sort of ground truths. As we pick models and work with different model providers, we're making sure we have data protection agreements in place with all of them, that anything we send them won't be used to train further models. We're sort of thinking about that internally, that when we're building custom things for a customer, we never want that to leak over customer to customer. We're not going to train a model that might accidentally expose one customer's IP to a different customer. Sort of thinking about those ground truths baked into it to make sure there are certain guardrails on what happens and how to make sure our customers' data, which is super important, super critical, stays private to them.
And part of the benefit of human in the loop is building that experience, comfort, and trust. Trust comes with experience. And I think the more folks try out our AI and AI outside of Tulip, will just build that experience and shape the mindset that helps people know how to use AI, both creatively and with high confidence.
I think we're at a moment with AI right now where it's almost like Wikipedia was 20 years ago, right? When all teachers in the world were like, do not use Wikipedia. And over time, we found out, oh, there is some use in it. Here's how we're going to use it. We're going to look at references. We're going to pull them in. We're going to use our intelligence to evaluate the output. I think a lot of similar things actually map into AI today.
And now
as
the Wikipedia rules are almost unspoken.
Exactly. Everybody knows it. It's intuitive. Yeah.
You don't have to train your staff.
Yes.
But for now, maybe we're still teaching people, like, we want you in the loop, we want some discernment. I think one of the other things that comes up often as a concern, especially with kind of the chat or summary-based features around generative AI, is a fear of hallucinations or giving bad information. Can you talk a little bit about the protections built into the platform there?
Yeah, absolutely. As much as possible, we try to anchor it back to real information, right? So if you're pulling a result, great, here's the 5 references that it's pulling information from and it's summarizing it, but you can go back and check and see, okay, it's thinking that because here's the piece of information it pulled together to make that result. Or in our analytical copilot, hey, it's making an analysis and that's not a magic black box. I can open that up and see the filters it picks, the time range it's looking at. I can validate the information that it's giving me, and I trust that it's not hallucinating an entire query or data set. I can confirm that in a more deterministic, repeatable way.
And that traceability, again, brings us back to human in the loop. The folks using the AI don't just have to or can review the results. They can also go back and, for a more detailed answer, click into each and every paragraph and understand where that came from.
So we've done a little bit of discussion on our general approach to AI, and I think features that people immediately think of when they think of generative AI are like chat features and kind of search features. The thing that we wanted to dive a little bit deeper on today is the AI composer. Can you all talk through why we found this use case to be particularly valuable and the way we chose to approach designing it for users?
That's a great question. We actually started with the operations and the humans involved. What are people spending a lot of time on that they wish they maybe didn't have to do? And one of the top things that we found was converting complex multi-page PDFs into an interactive app. It's largely doing the same thing over and over. You have 30 pages of a PDF. You're going to create maybe a 20-step app, just copying and pasting the images in with some creative choices in the middle. Can something like Gen AI make that better? So that was really our thought process.
You know, we've thought a lot about paper on glass over our time. We're intentionally not building a tool that's just your PDF on a digital format, right? We want it to be a starting point and something you can go from there. And that's where we felt this was the right moment to take on this challenge of the conversion process, because it is not just direct one-to-one. It's going to go understand your PDF and look at, oh, I probably need to add a text input here. Oh, I'm going to do a reformat here. Oh, that's a header. Let's change that around. It's more semantically understanding the PDF that's coming in as it translates it into an application. And then that also gives you a starting point to continue to build on top of, to integrate with other systems. It's just your beginning. It's your floor, not your ceiling of what that conversion is going to look like.
And giving that floor lets you raise the ceiling, because now 5 to 10 to 20 hours of your day are not spent building the floor. You already have the floor.
Yeah.
You can now creatively raise the ceiling yourself.
We're talking to customers that have started using, and they have thousands of PDFs that they've been making for years and years. And when they started with Tulip, they took their highest value, most critical things, but now they're going through and moving all of these PDFs to Tulip in the Composer, and it suddenly elevates the rest of their operation and it allows them to reset and continue building from there, basically.
So one of the things you all were pointing at is this like paper on glass concept. So the idea that digitizing isn't enough, but real transformative power of a tool like Tulip comes by making it an interactive workflow, by getting that additional data. And increasingly, it seems, in regulated environments, also ensuring compliance and having other kind of safeguards in place from paper into those digital kind of interactive workflows. Can you talk a little bit more about that capability?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen so many customers where they have reams and reams of paper going back years. And they sort of separate it out into two parts, the instructional component and the data recording component. Oftentimes they're interwoven. You'll see a document with both instructions and things captured together. As we try to pull these in with customers like that, we find they oftentimes have thousands of old records with really valuable tribal knowledge in it, everything they measured, the problems they saw, all of this, but it's text-based. And until recently, we haven't had good tools to understand and work with this unstructured text-based information. And we're actually seeing a moment where some of those life science customers now are jumping ahead because they have access to this data set that other types of manufacturing didn't record because it wasn't valuable historically to bring that information into the system.
Digitizing both the work instruction and the audit trail has been a transformation in the industry probably for decades at this point. I think we're hitting the point where people are ready. They're ready to take it to the next step. And both the digitization part and eventually the intelligence part to learn from their digitized audit trail could really help improve not just the existing regulations they have, but their overall level of quality.
Yep.
And so what comes next? So we're taking all different formats of paper instructions, enabling that like with a human verified process, conversion into instruction interactive application. That's PDFs. What's the future of AI Composer?
Let me start with sort of a different perspective first.
Okay.
The last 6 to 12 months in software engineering have been a fascinating time. The way we write and think about code internally is changing literally on a week-by-week basis. As an example, Olga, I think you were getting your hands dirty building some prototypes yourself recently.
I actually got a dev stack running. It took me a year without AI, and it took me an hour with AI.
Incredible.
We think about it a little bit as like the cursor moment in software, right? How is this changing? It's not just Composer, Claude Code, it's all these other tools. There's a massive change happening within software engineering right now. And I don't think that change has been reflected into other verticals and industries and professions yet. And Composer is just the start for us as we continue to build on top of it and bring some of the power that we've seen for ourselves internally in our engineering department to our customers directly. So we're continuing forward with more sort of agentic app creation. We're continuing forward with multimodal input. Imagine taking your phone and recording a process on a shop floor, uploading that to Tulip and getting an app out the other side of it. Where we are with Composer is by no means the end. It's really just sort of the starting gun for us.
So really rethinking the way that people are creating the content that helps them manage their operations.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that you guys are kind of teasing at right now is, as people who use these tools, you often use versions of generative AI tools that are designed for software engineering, for engineering. And we're working on ones designed for often process engineers, operations engineers. Is that necessary? Is that distinction between like functional focus or vertical versus horizontal support necessary to achieve the value? Like, how are you all thinking about that from a product perspective?
I would say most industries in the world are innovating right now. And we're also, engineers in an industry. We are also have our ear to the ground. We try to find the latest trends. We see how can we productively, effectively, and safely take in those tools and use them to up-level our operations. I personally just myself think it's really important to stay ahead of progress, to understand what others are doing, to learn from them each and every day. So I think every industry has its own needs, and it's important to understand the uniqueness of those needs, but there are general improvements that can be made and learned from. I think this will be a mindset change for everyone.
I'd say as well that the models are only as good as the things they trained on, more or less. And in our space, there's actually not that much publicly accessible training data. And if you go in and start poking at this, it can get the buzzwords for you, but if you're really digging in and interrogating some concept that's relevant to you, the model starts to fall apart and just hallucinate things. And so this actually goes back to sort of our first principle there of operations first. How do we think about these models in a contextualized way that's useful for these domains? And if we think about how those domains and challenges are different customer to customer, how do we help our customers present the right context, the right information to these models so that the results they're getting out the other side are useful and not based on, I don't know, some Reddit thread that OpenAI scraped and put into their model or something like that?
Yeah.
That's a really great point. There are many models out there and many tools out there because they're tailored. They're tailored to the use case. So as we might be using one thing for ourselves to code with, or prototype with, but we have a very tailored version of Gen AI for a manufacturing use case. And MCP servers are optimized for the specific use cases that they would be used for. Another benefit of that is you have a highly effective AI model specifically designed for a certain use case that doesn't have the other context. So it's also cheaper and faster to use those, pick and choose those MCP servers for your specific need.
And you all see this accelerating customers' ability to get all of their operations kind of into Tulip or into this platform setting, which seems to just unlock more contextual and domain experience for them to further leverage these models.
I would say it's really about like, how do you give that human superpowers? How do you help them do the thing that they're uniquely good at, bring their intelligence, curiosity to bear, and help give them leverage on the things that don't require their full ability and skill set?
All right, so you talked a little bit about what's next with AI Composer. Can you share what's next more broadly?
Yeah. So beyond AI Composer, we're starting to think about how we take action with AI and start to make broader changes and impacts. Now, I'm sure you've heard of agents. I think it's the hot buzz right now. I think as in many times with AI, the hype is greater than the reality, but the reality is also not at its potential of where it can be. We're starting to experiment a bunch of this. I think Olga mentioned MCP. We're starting to run a bunch of experiments internally. How can we create, contextualize, and enable agents within a governed platform that has all of the things you would expect from that, but to be able to start to surface insights automatically, take action automatically, ask and work with humans back and forth to help with types of tasks on the shop floor.
Excellent. Well, very exciting developments, and I'm sure a lot more to come. So thank you both so much.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you.